Michael Jordan and I are friends, and I call him all the time because I like his brand Jordan sneakers and his clothes. My four, it would be easy, probably Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and then I'll take, Kareem and Bill Russell.
There are very few people in basketball history who can honestly say they witnessed multiple generations of greatness up close. Magic Johnson can. He played alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, competed against Michael Jordan, watched Kobe Bryant rise, and lived through the era of LeBron James. That gives Magic a rare vantage point when it comes to judging the greatest players in basketball. He wasn't just watching history, he was part of it. But how do you choose only 5? Do you value championships, individual dominance, longevity, peak performance, or the ability to change the game itself? Magic's own career gives us a clue. 5 championships, 3 MVP awards, 3 finals MVP awards. He changed what people thought a point guard could be. But even Magic had players whose greatness seemed to exist on another level. And to understand them, we have to start with the legends who came before him. At number 5 is Bill Russell. Russell averaged just 15.1 points per game for his career, but scoring was never the best way to understand his greatness. He won 11 NBA championships and 5 regular season MVP awards, becoming the defensive foundation of the greatest dynasty of his era. His most important contributions weren't always visible in the box score: positioning, timing, communication, defense, and leadership. Russell understood that you didn't always have to block a shot. Sometimes, you simply had to make the shooter believe you might. That hesitation could change an entire possession. Russell could control a game without dominating the ball. And most importantly, he won 11 times. If Russell represented the ultimate team success, the next player represented something completely different: overwhelming individual dominance. Wilt Chamberlain's numbers sound almost impossible. In the 1961-62 campaign, Chamberlain put together a season unlike anything the league had ever seen, averaging 50.4 points and 25.7 rebounds every night for an entire season. And on March 2, 1962, Wilt scored 100 points against the New York Knicks. More than 6 decades later, nobody has matched it. But Wilt wasn't just a statistical phenomenon. He was enormous, powerful, and extraordinarily athletic. He could dominate the paint, control the glass, and run the floor like a much smaller player. Imagine trying to defend that. You weren't simply guarding a center. You were trying to stop one of the most physically overwhelming players basketball had ever seen. But Wilt's career created one of the greatest contradictions in basketball. Bill Russell won 11 championships. Wilt won 2. Russell represented winning on an almost unprecedented scale. Wilt represented individual dominance on an almost unprecedented scale. And both became impossible to leave out of the greatest player conversation. For Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was different. He wasn't someone Magic simply watched. He was his teammate. Magic saw Kareem in practice, in playoff battles, and under the pressure of championship basketball. Kareem finished his career with 6 championships and 6 MVP awards. For decades, he also held the NBA's career scoring record. And then there was the skyhook. It looked simple, but the release point was incredibly high. The shot could be taken with either hand, and defenders had almost no clean way to contest it. Kareem could make one of basketball's most difficult shots look routine. Then there was his longevity. He entered the NBA in 1969 and was still playing at an elite level 2 decades later. Together, Kareem and Magic became the heart of the Showtime Lakers. But eventually, another superstar arrived, a player who would turn pressure into an art form: Michael Jordan. Magic and Jordan represented 2 completely different ways of controlling a game. Magic could manipulate the entire floor. Jordan could make the entire possession revolve around himself. 6 championships, 6 Finals MVP awards, 5 MVP awards, 10 scoring titles. The resume is extraordinary. But statistics still don't completely explain Jordan. His greatest weapon may have been what happened when the pressure increased. The defense knew who was getting the ball. They knew he was going to attack, and they still couldn't consistently stop him. That's the difference between being a great scorer and becoming an all-time offensive force. Jordan didn't just score points. He changed the emotional temperature of the game. Every possession felt more important. Every mistake felt more dangerous. And every close game carried the same question: what happens if Jordan gets the ball? Magic knew that pressure. He had experienced it from the other side. And Jordan eventually became the standard against which almost every superstar was measured. But then came a player who would challenge that standard in a completely different way. Not through one incredible peak, but through 2 decades of sustained excellence. Number 1. LeBron James. LeBron didn't simply have a great career. He changed our understanding of how long greatness could last. He entered the NBA in 2003 under enormous expectations. More than 2 decades later, he had played through different teams, coaches, teammates, and generations of basketball, while remaining one of the league's defining stars. 4 championships, 4 MVP awards, 4 Finals MVP awards. The NBA's all-time scoring record. But longevity alone doesn't explain LeBron. He could score, pass, rebound, create offense, handle the ball, and at different points in his career, defend multiple positions. He wasn't just one type of superstar. He could become whatever the game required. And that's what makes his career so difficult to compare with players from previous generations. Because when you ask what makes a player great, LeBron seems to have checked almost every box. So who is actually the greatest? Jordan? LeBron? Kareem? Wilt? Russell? There may never be one definitive answer. And maybe there shouldn't be. Because greatness isn't one thing. Russell represents the ultimate team success. Wilt represents statistical dominance. Kareem represents longevity and consistency. Jordan represents peak performance and competitive intensity. LeBron represents versatility and unprecedented longevity. And then there's Magic Johnson himself. Magic represents transformation. He showed that a point guard could control an entire game without dominating the scoring column. He showed that passing could be just as devastating as scoring. And alongside Larry Bird, he became one of the central figures in the NBA's transformation into a global sports phenomenon. That's why this debate never really ends. It's not just about statistics. It's about what each player changed. Russell changed what winning looked like. Wilt changed what individual dominance looked like. Kareem changed what longevity looked like. Jordan changed what competitive greatness looked like. And LeBron changed what longevity, versatility, and sustained excellence could look like in the modern NBA. Different eras, different rules, different styles, but one common denominator: they changed the game. Because the greatest players don't simply collect statistics or win trophies. They change what the next generation believes is possible. Every generation produces a new superstar, and then the comparisons begin. Jordan versus LeBron, Kareem versus Wilt, Russell versus everyone. And eventually, another player will arrive and force basketball to ask the same impossible question all over again. Did we just watch the greatest ever? Maybe that's the real legacy of Magic Johnson's generation. They didn't settle the debate. They made it impossible to stop having it. And perhaps that's exactly what the greatest basketball players are supposed to do.